The smoke had turned the Colorado sky into something apocalyptic. What had started 3 days ago as a small brush fire had exploded into a monster, consuming over 40,000 acres of forest and threatening the small mountain communities scattered throughout the region. The wind had shifted that morning, and now the fire was moving faster than anyone had predicted. Faster than the crews could contain it. Jennifer Walsh stood at the staging area, watching the wall of flames paint the horizon orange and red. She'd been a search and rescue handler for 8 years, but she'd never worked a wildfire of this magnitude. Beside her, Blaze, her 4-year-old Belgian Malinois, sat at attention, his dark eyes fixed on the smoke-filled forest ahead. The dog's name had been chosen long before this assignment, but now it felt almost prophetic. "All teams, this is command," the radio crackled. "We've got confirmation of 2 civilians unaccounted for in Sector 7. Last known location was near the old hiking trails. Fire is approximately 3 miles out and moving fast." Jennifer felt her stomach tighten. Sector 7 was deep in the burn zone. The evacuation order had gone out hours ago, but sometimes people didn't listen. Sometimes they thought they had more time. Sometimes they were just unlucky. "Walsh, you and Blaze are up," Captain Morrison said, approaching with a tablet showing the thermal imagery of the area. "We need you in and out fast. You've got maybe 4 hours before that sector is completely overrun." Jennifer nodded, checking Blaze's search vest and her own equipment. 4 hours. It sounded like enough time until you factored in the terrain, the smoke, the heat, and the unpredictability of wildfire behavior. She'd worked searches where 4 hours passed like 4 minutes. They entered the forest in a 4-person team: Jennifer and Blaze, firefighter Marcus Chin, and paramedic Sarah Rodriguez. The smoke was thick immediately, cutting visibility to maybe 30 feet. Jennifer fitted Blaze with protective goggles, designed for working dogs, and wrapped a wet cloth around his snout to help filter the air. The dog didn't flinch. He'd been trained for this. "Blaze, search!" Jennifer commanded, and the dog moved forward, his nose working methodically despite the overwhelming smell of burning wood and vegetation. She'd always marveled at his ability to isolate scents. To find the human signature amid the chaos of a disaster scene, they moved deeper into the forest, following a trail that was becoming increasingly difficult to navigate. Fallen trees blocked the path. Ash fell like snow. The temperature was climbing with every step, the heat radiating from the approaching fire front like an invisible wall. 2 hours in, they found the first civilian. A hiker, male, mid-40s, who'd twisted his ankle trying to outrun the fire and had collapsed from smoke inhalation. They got him stabilized and called for extraction. 1 down, 1 to go. But the second civilian was proving impossible to locate. Blaze had picked up a scent trail multiple times, only to lose it when the wind shifted and carried smoke directly over the area. The dog was working harder than Jennifer had ever seen, his movements becoming more urgent, almost frantic. "Walsh, we need to start thinking about pulling out," Marcus said, checking his radio. Fires picked up speed. "We're down to maybe 90 minutes of safe window." Jennifer looked at Blaze. The dog had stopped, his body rigid, staring deeper into the forest toward a ridge that overlooked a steep ravine. She knew that look. He'd found something. "Give me 30 more minutes," she said. Jennifer. 30 minutes, Marcus. He's got something." They pushed forward, climbing toward the ridge. The smoke was so thick now that Jennifer had to rely almost entirely on following Blaze, and then the radio crackled with a tone she'd been dreading. "All teams, immediate evacuation order." "Repeat, immediate evacuation. Fire has jumped the containment line. Sector 7 is now critical. All personnel evacuate immediately." Jennifer's heart sank. Immediate evacuation meant no exceptions, no delays. It meant the fire had become too dangerous, too unpredictable. It meant they were out of time. "Blaze, recall," she commanded. "Come." But Blaze didn't come. He didn't even turn around. Instead, he did something Jennifer had never seen in 4 years of partnership. He ran back to her, jumped up, and bit down on her sleeve. Not hard enough to break skin, but firm enough to stop her movement. It was a signal they'd never trained, a behavior that had never been in his repertoire. "What the—" Jennifer started, but Blaze released her sleeve and darted forward, then stopped and looked back, waiting. His message was clear. "Follow me." Now. Jennifer, we have to go, Sarah urged, already turning back toward the trail. Marcus grabbed Jennifer's arm. Command said immediate evac. That's not a suggestion. Jennifer looked at Blaze, then at the smoke-filled forest beyond him. Every protocol, every safety regulation, every bit of training told her to follow that evacuation order. But something in Blaze's behavior, something in the desperate intensity of his eyes, told her a different story. She made a choice that would haunt her for months. You two go, she said, pulling her arm free. I'm following him. You can't be serious. If I'm wrong, it's on me. But I trust my dog. Get out of here. That's an order. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but the sound of trees exploding in the distance as the fire consumed them made the decision for him. He and Sarah turned and ran back toward the staging area, leaving Jennifer and Blaze alone in the burning forest. All right, boy, Jennifer said, her voice tight with fear and determination. Show me. Blaze took off like a shot, and Jennifer followed, her lungs already burning from the smoke despite her respirator. They left the trail entirely, crashing through underbrush and over fallen logs. The heat was becoming unbearable. Jennifer could hear the fire now, a roaring sound like a freight train bearing down on them. They reached the edge of a ravine, and Blaze didn't slow down. He scrambled down the steep slope, rocks and dirt sliding beneath his paws. Jennifer followed, half running, half falling, branches tearing at her protective gear. At the bottom of the ravine was a small creek bed. Mostly dry this late in the season, and beyond that, another slope leading up to a rocky outcropping. Blaze climbed toward the rocks, moving around a large boulder, and then stopped. He barked once, sharp and urgent, then began pawing at something Jennifer couldn't yet see. She reached him and felt her breath catch. There, wedged into a narrow crevice between two large rocks, was a firefighter. His yellow turnout gear was torn and blackened, his helmet cracked. He wasn't moving. Blood stained the rocks beneath him. Oh God, Jennifer breathed, dropping to her knees beside him. She checked for a pulse, found one, weak but present. His breathing was shallow, labored. She keyed her radio, knowing even as she did that she'd lost signal in the ravine. As she reached to assess his injuries, she saw movement beneath his turnout coat. Her heart stopped. The firefighter's arms were wrapped around something, holding it tight against his chest even in unconsciousness. Jennifer carefully opened the coat, and her world tilted. A little boy no more than 4 years old with blonde hair and tear-stained cheeks. He was conscious, terrified, but alive. His small hands clutched the firefighter's coat, and his eyes found Jennifer's with desperate hope. It's okay, sweetheart, Jennifer said, her voice cracking. I've got you. You're safe now. She knew this child. She'd seen his photo during the morning briefing. Noah Patterson, 4 years old, reported missing 24 hours ago after wandering away from a family camping trip. They'd assumed he'd already been found, evacuated with other civilians. But somehow he'd been missed, and this firefighter had found him. The firefighter stirred slightly, his eyes opening just a crack. His lips moved, forming words Jennifer could barely hear. Get him out, the man whispered. Promise me. You're both getting out, Jennifer said firmly, though she had no idea how she was going to make that happen. The fire was closing in. She could see the orange glow through the smoke now. Feel the superheated air beginning to sear her lungs. Even through the respirator. She tried the radio again. Nothing. They were in a dead zone. Trapped at the bottom of a ravine with an injured firefighter, a terrified child, and a wildfire that would reach them in minutes. Jennifer looked at Blaze. The dog was panting heavily from the heat and exertion, but his eyes were alert, focused. He'd done his job. He'd found them. Now it was her job to get them out. She made a rapid assessment. The firefighter had severe injuries, likely from falling down the ravine. Multiple fractures, possible internal bleeding. Moving him would be dangerous, but leaving him would be fatal. The child was in better shape, physically at least. Traumatized, dehydrated, but mobile. Noah, Jennifer said, keeping her voice calm and gentle. I need you to be very brave. Can you do that for me? The boy nodded slightly, his grip on the firefighter's coat tightening. This man saved you, Jennifer continued. And now we're going to save him. But I need your help. I need you to let go of him so I can pick you up. Can you do that? For a long moment, Noah didn't move. Then, slowly, his small fingers released their grip. Jennifer lifted him, and he wrapped his arms around her neck, his small body trembling. Getting the firefighter out would be impossible alone. He was too heavy, too injured, and the terrain too dangerous. Jennifer needed help, and she needed it now. But how could she get a signal? Blaze provided the answer. The dog had moved to the edge of the crevice and was looking up toward the top of the ravine. The ridge. Higher ground. Maybe enough to get a signal. Jennifer made another impossible choice. She pulled out her emergency flare, the kind used to signal aircraft or ground teams, and handed it to Noah. "Hold this tight," she said. "Don't let go." Then she looked at Blaze. "Up," she commanded, pointing to the ridge. "Go up, alert." The dog understood immediately. He took off, climbing the steep slope with an agility that would have been impressive under any circumstances. Within minutes, he'd disappeared over the edge of the ravine. Jennifer could only hope he'd reach somewhere with better visibility, somewhere the rescue teams could see him. She turned her attention back to the firefighter. She couldn't move him, but she could try to stabilize him. She used her emergency medical kit to pack his visible wounds, to secure his neck, to do what little she could with limited supplies. "Stay with me," she urged him. "Help is coming." The firefighter's eyes opened again, more focused this time. She could see the name on his turnout gear now, Torres. "Captain D. Torres." "The boy," Torres whispered. "He's safe," Jennifer assured him. "Right here. Thanks to you." Torres's lips moved in what might have been a smile. "Found him." "By the old campground. Parents already evacuated." "Didn't know." "He was still here." Jennifer felt a surge of anger at the situation, at the chaos that had left a 4-year-old behind. But there was no time for that now. The heat was becoming unbearable. She could see flames now climbing the far side of the ravine. They had minutes, maybe less, and then she heard it. The beautiful, impossible sound of a helicopter. She looked up and saw it through the smoke. A firefighting helicopter that had been diverted from water drops to search and rescue. And there, at the ridge above them, was Blaze standing at the edge, visible against the sky, the perfect landmark for the rescue team to home in on. The next 10 minutes were a blur of controlled chaos. The helicopter couldn't land in the ravine, but they could deploy a rescue basket. Jennifer secured Noah first, strapping him in with shaking hands and watching as the basket lifted, carrying the little boy to safety. Then Torres, unconscious again but still breathing, carefully placed in a spine board and lifted with agonizing slowness, and finally, Jennifer herself, with Blaze secured in a special harness against her chest. Both of them rising above the burning forest as the fire swept through the ravine below, consuming everything they'd just escaped in the helicopter. As paramedics worked on Torres and comforted Noah, Jennifer held Blaze tight. The dog was exhausted, his paws burned from the hot ground, his lungs damaged from smoke inhalation. But his tail wagged weakly as she whispered to him. She said, "You knew they were there. You wouldn't give up." The aftermath came in waves. Torres survived after 3 surgeries and weeks of recovery. Noah was reunited with his family, physically unharmed but emotionally scarred. He spent hours in therapy, but he always asked about the dog and the lady who found me. But for Jennifer, there was a different kind of reckoning. The disciplinary hearing came 3 weeks after the rescue. She sat in a conference room at the agency headquarters, Blaze at her feet, facing a panel of supervisors and safety officers. "Officer Walsh," the panel chair began, his voice stern, "you deliberately disobeyed a direct evacuation order. You put yourself and your canine partner at extreme risk. You violated multiple safety protocols. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Jennifer stood, her hands clasped behind her back. "I do, sir. My dog detected 2 individuals in critical need of rescue. One was a fellow first responder who had put himself at risk to save a child. The other was a 4-year-old boy who would have died if we'd followed that evacuation order. I made a choice to trust my partner's instincts over protocol. I would make that choice again." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Captain Torres, still using a cane but standing tall in his dress uniform, spoke from the back of the room where he'd been sitting as a witness. "If I may," he said. The panel nodded. Torres walked forward slowly until he stood beside Jennifer. "This officer and her dog saved my life. More importantly, they saved Noah Patterson's life. I'm a 20-year veteran of the fire service. I know the value of protocols and evacuation orders. But I also know that sometimes, in the chaos of a disaster, someone has to make the hard call. Officer Walsh made that call, and 2 people are alive because of it." The panel deliberated for less than 5 minutes. When they returned, the chair's expression was unreadable. "Officer Walsh, your actions constituted a serious breach of protocol. However, given the exceptional circumstances and the outcome of your decision, this panel has decided on a formal reprimand with no suspension or demotion. You will undergo additional safety training, but you will keep your position and your canine partner." Jennifer felt her knees weaken with relief. Beside her, Blaze stood and pressed against her leg, sensing her emotion. 6 months later, Jennifer and Blaze visited Torres at his home. He was back on limited duty, working as a training instructor while he continued physical therapy. Noah and his family were there too. The little boy had grown taller, his eyes brighter than in those dark moments in the ravine. When Noah saw Blaze, his face lit up. He ran forward, then stopped, suddenly shy. Jennifer knelt beside her dog. "It's okay," she said gently. "He remembers you." Noah reached out a small hand and touched Blaze's head. The dog leaned into the touch, his tail wagging. "He saved me," Noah said, looking up at Jennifer. "And you saved me too." "We saved each other," Jennifer replied, scratching behind Blaze's ears. The dog looked at her with those intelligent eyes, and she knew, as she'd known in that burning forest, that she would trust him with her life, because he'd already trusted her with his. Torres approached, moving slowly but steadily. He knelt down with some effort and looked Blaze directly in the eyes. "Thank you, buddy," he said quietly. "Thank you for not giving up." Blaze's tail wagged harder, and for a moment, in a sunny backyard far from smoke and flames, there was only peace. The fire had taken thousands of acres of forest, but it hadn't taken what mattered most. Because a dog had refused to follow orders. Because a handler had trusted her partner's instincts over protocol. Because sometimes breaking the rules is the only way to save a life.